Hello everyone. Today I'm joined by Tanya. My name is Ola, and we're here today with a special guest. Hello, Izzy.
Hi.
Welcome. And Today we're going to be interviewing Izzy. So let's go in right away, shall we? Izzy, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us something more about your illness.
Sure. So like she said, my name is Izzy. So I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have the hypermobile type. One of the main things I do with that is I do some research in the Ehlers-Danlos syndromes, and I also am a genetic counseling student. One of the main things I do is try to raise awareness and talk a bit about some of the science behind EDS. So I actually have a YouTube channel where I do that. In terms of just my diagnosis, I was diagnosed with EDS, I want to say when I was 20 or around 20, but I'd been having symptoms for a long time. And it was just like with a lot of people, a very long journey to finally get a diagnosis to figure out what was going on.
You started your YouTube channel a few years back where you talk about all things chronic illness, EDS, dysautonomia. Why did you decide to share your story and talk about this on the internet?
Yeah, I think the reason I did that was because I don't think I knew anybody in my life that was at least open about having a chronic illness. Like, I think that in high school, I was the only person dealing with pain that I knew about and dealing with these symptoms on a daily basis, and that was really hard for me, just because it was a huge part of my life that I didn't feel like I could talk much about, that I felt like nobody else could relate to. And it was especially hard because I didn't have any answers as to what was going on. So when I finally did have those answers and I knew what had been, causing all these symptoms, it kind of just like opened my eyes to a whole like world of people that had probably been experiencing a very similar thing to me. And I just wanted to talk a bit about my experience so that they didn't feel like the only person going through it. And I also think that I had been doing a lot of research on it just because I do have a scientific interest in it. And it was just super interesting. So I learned a lot and I felt like I could give, at least at the start, extremely basic information that might take somebody a little bit of time to say Google. And I thought I could be a good resource.
So, as you said before, you're a genetic counselor student, which I think is super awesome. Like, that is so fascinating for me. Uh, so, how has your illness affected your education, and why did you decide to become a genetic counselor?
Yeah, it's definitely played a role in some really positive ways, and then it's also made some things a lot harder. In terms of some of the things that it's actually really helped me with, there's obviously a lot of medicine and genetic counseling, a lot of medical genetics. And because I spent so many years in doctors' offices, learning about my conditions and doing some research, I did kind of have a step up in the medical jargon, medical world. I knew how appointments were supposed to go. I knew the things that I liked when a physician or a medical provider did that and things that I didn't like. And so I think that it's actually made me feel pretty confident when talking with patients, and it's really helped me in that sense. It's definitely made things hard when I go through a period where I'm just not feeling well and I need to do all the same work that all my friends are doing. Um, but it's not like I can get any leeway, it's unless of course it's particularly bad, then that's a different story. But just day-to-day fluctuations and how I feel, I have to kind of account for potentially not having those extra few hours later on in the day because I might not feel well enough. I might be very fatigued, or in a lot of pain. And so there's a lot of planning, and sometimes even falling a little bit behind and then having to stay up later than I wanted, waking up earlier than I had planned to finish the things that I need to finish.
Um, what's what's the biggest and most influential lesson you've learned since the beginning of your health issues?
That's a hard question. I think in terms of something that it's at least changed me, is I'm a way more compassionate person. And I think that that has helped me in so many areas of life because I've become so much more attuned to what people are going through, whether it's good or bad, but really just caring and listening and wanting to hear about what they're going through. And as a result, I think I've made a lot of amazing friendships because of those skills that I've learned, and also amazing friendships in the community. I mean, like, really, there's some of my best friends I met because I have EDS, and I'm so thankful.
Have you ever felt like your illness and everything that has to do with it defines you in any way?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I do think that sometimes I feel like I see in the media, like, and they don't let that condition define them. And I think it's an odd question, but it's a question that we hear a lot. Personally, it does, my EDS definitely does not define me. It certainly plays a role in a lot of parts of my life, whether I want it to or not. That's just going to be, the reality. Um, but at no point do I feel like it defines me. Sometimes it plays a bigger role than I'd like for it to in my life, and other times it's not nearly as big as I'd expect or it had been. And it's definitely made me who I am. But I'm definitely separate from my EDS, if that makes sense, but I've learned so much from it. I hope that answers the question.
I was really excited to talk to you today because I knew that you are involved in some kind of EDS research, and also that you are diagnosed with EDS, and I have EDS as well. But what is the biggest misconception about EDS that you've heard of or just know about?
I think probably one of the most common ones is that people either believe the severity of EDS falls on either one side of the spectrum or the other side. So either, oh, it's just hypermobility, maybe some healing issues, it's not a big deal, or, oh my gosh, it's extremely severe, every aspect of your life is impacted. You can't live, a quote unquote normal life. And people sometimes clustering on one or the two sides of the spectrum. And I think that's extremely damaging if you're on either side. I think a lot of medical professionals will fall on either side. And if they think that it's too severe, then somebody with EDS might not get diagnosed and get the proper treatment because they're like, oh, that's so rare. Like, you have to be extremely severe to even potentially be considered to have that. Or the other end where, a patient feels completely invalidated, they're not listened to, they don't get the right treatment because the doctor's like, it's just hypermobility, we all have pain, like, calm down. And I think that's so dismissive and invalidating and leads to really bad care. So I'd say that that's the biggest misconception, and I honestly see it in the community too. I think some of it's just like misinformation, or if you are part of the community, I think some of our experiences might be a little bit skewed, because if it becomes a big enough part of your life that, like, you feel like you want extra support by having a lot of friends with EDS, a lot of them are going to be quite, on the more severe side of the spectrum. So I think it can be confusing when you don't get to see the other side.
As you've mentioned, you have a scientific interest. So hence that question, do you think science will advance enough so that people with genetic and chronic illnesses will be able to function normally or be cured completely? And if so, what can we do to help scientists make that happen?
It's so exciting to be able to, like, even think of that as potentially a possibility. I think that in the future there's going to be medications and treatments that are offered that will significantly improve the life and symptoms of people with EDS. I don't know if there's ever going to be a cure. I guess, like, gene therapy may be very far in the future. But I also think that with that kind of treatment and cure, you need to know exactly what the mutations are, and it's very, individualized. And so I do think that it's potentially possible. I'm not sure if it's going to be in our lifetime, but I do think within our lifetime, for sure, there's going to be better and more targeted therapies.
As we talked about, there are lots of misconceptions about EDS and other chronic illness conditions. So, can you recommend any reliable sources where someone could learn more about EDS if they wanted to?
Yeah, I think that it can be hard to find the right resource sometimes. In terms of learning, if you just want to learn about the condition, I really think that the Ehlers-Danlos Society has good information. And they do post some like summaries of some major studies, because sometimes reading all of that medical jargon in these research articles is not practical, because not everybody majors in something that's like scientific related. And so it can be hard to get all the information that you want by going to those like initial sources. So I do think that the Ehlers-Danlos Society could be a really good resource, especially if you want to, like bring up some information to a medical professional, such as printing out the diagnostic criteria for EDS. I also think that like the biggest resource for me has always been like psychosocial support by meeting others with EDS and just having friends and being able to chat about it, or just being able to chat about anything in life and still having that mutual understanding of, like what it's, like, oh yeah, I didn't go there because like my knee was hurting me, without having to further explain. It's just like understood. I think that's always been my biggest support. But for information, I think Ehlers-Danlos Society is good.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't covered yet in the questions?
Nothing I can think of, but thank you so much for interviewing me. And I love that you are doing this.
Thank you. It was very nice meeting you and very nice interviewing you. And if anyone who's watching would like to follow Izzy, or subscribe to her YouTube channel, the links will be in the description box below. So thank you very much, Izzy, for the interview. Again, so nice meeting you, and we hope to see you in some future interviews, maybe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.